Here we go, episode 32 of the Hibs Ramble. We're back again. It's me hosting Craig, and I've got Mark, Liam, and Sean with me. How are we doing, boys?
Not
Yeah,
bad,
I'm great, mate. I'm great.
Good. We've got a special podcast for you tonight because we're joined by the Hibernian Chief Executive, Ben Kensell, and First Team Manager, Lee Johnson. Firstly, guys, we just want to ask, can you just give us a wee update on how Ron's doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and good to see you guys. Look, Ron's with his family, which is where he needs to be, and he's got the best medical treatment that he can get. He was really humbled by the response that he received when the open letter went out to supporters, and he knows that everyone is wishing him the very best. So no, look, he's in the best hands that he can possibly be. He knows that he can always pick up the phone to us. He does most days. And he's doing as well as he can.
Excellent. Well, can you pass on the wishes from the four of us, and that we hope to see him back at Easter Road soon?
Massively appreciate you starting with that. So thank you.
Grant, thank you. I'm just going to jump in from there. First of all, thank you very much both for coming on. Really appreciate the time, Ben. I know every time I see you around the Albion bar or in the Pioneers, I'm always pestering you to come on the Ramble. So I appreciate you coming on. Lee, been in the job just over 8 months now. Could you just summarise for me your time at Hibs so far?
Yeah, I've loved it, I have to say. It's been a battle, there's no doubt in that. You know, brilliant football club, like great people around the place, like, you know, stadium, fan base, history, location. Love it, like really enjoy it. And, you know, I'm up for it, if you know what I mean, for where we need to go. Frustrated as everybody else in terms of I wanted to do more earlier, but I genuinely believe that we've rectified some work that we wanted to do better in terms of the last window, the summer window, in the January window. And I think that the club is on a really stable, sound sort of footing, and I think we can really develop from here. And you know, I've been around a lot of football clubs now as a player and as a manager, and in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I've really started to smell the type of environment that you need to go and be successful. So, as frustrated as I am with the bad run of form we had, I'm also very proud of the resilience shown by the players and the staff to hit what is now a half decent run of form over the last sort of 5/10 games, and we need to continue that. We get another opportunity in the summer to redefine our work again, hopefully with the added element of a new sort of head of football, sporting director, whatever we want to call it. And I think that will be, like I say, a really quality addition if we can get that one right.
Lee, hi, Sean here. Thanks so much for taking up the time. Yourself, Ben, as well. I really appreciate it. Lee, I just want to quickly touch on something that you mentioned a couple of times throughout the season. You mentioned about mistakes being made in a couple of your post-match interviews, and that you didn't really talk about player-specific. It was more about you, your coaching staff, and things like that. You went on to say that lessons needed to be learned, and you said that you would make sure that you got it right going forward. So with that being said, I want to kind of get your take on what you've learned from those mistakes so far in your role as the manager, and maybe what you've learned about yourself since joining the club as well.
Yeah, well, listen, you're always learning. I think football, you know, you're judged every 3 days or every week up here. And I think, you know, it's a highly emotive sport. Like, I'm not sure in any other walk of life or sport it's as passionate as football is, because it's so inbred in terms of, like, it's deep with that sort of love of a particular club, and fans and supporters, like board members, like staff members, are so bought into, like, the success of the club. So nobody will feel a loss or a painful defeat or a bad run of form more than me, I can promise you, because we live it every day. You know, we put everything into this. And I suppose what am I talking about? I can't remember the specific interview that you're talking about, because obviously I'm doing like 7 a week, I think. Sometimes that's the issue, actually, because you end up talking too much, and it can become a little bit sort of frustrating for for me and everybody else if it sounds like it's the same message, but I try and vary the message, but to be consistent for what we're after. And I suppose what I'm talking about really is the summer window. And was that good enough? There was context to the summer window in terms of we had 7 players injured. So we not only tried to add depth, but we tried to bring in players maybe a little bit too quickly because we were going quickly into a competitive competition. I feel like we've been really unlucky with the injuries we've had. You know, if I was to pencil down what I expected my forward line, if you like, to look like over the first 3 or 4 months of the season, we just didn't have it. And then when we did start to get it, a key part of our forward line in Martin Boyle ended up being out for the season, which is obviously really disappointing. So I actually really strongly believe in the squad that we've got fully fit and its ability to compete, playing in the style that I want. And the hurdles and the challenges we've had this season have been unbelievable. I mean, all clubs have them, but we seem to have had them more than anybody, coupled with the compound nature of making 3 or 4 maybe rushed or bad decisions in that summer window. So like the infrastructure that we've got behind the scenes, we've had big conversations about that. Again, strong conversations both ways, because inevitably we want what's right for the club. You know, like I as a football manager just want to add value. And my value at the moment is obviously the knowledge I've got, having come through an academy, played X amount of matches as a professional, gone through my coaching badges, worked at various clubs. And obviously you have an opinion based on what you think is best for this football club. Ben's obviously worked at clubs and ran businesses as well in various forms. And you put that knowledge together, you deliver to the board, and then obviously inevitably Ron and the board decide which way we're going to move with that. So like, I'm very strong on my opinions on how we move the football club forward. I think there was some real good work been done as well over the last 6-7 months. I really do. And in a place where I believe that moving forward now, we can be successful both in terms of between now and the end of the season, but also the next opportunity, if you like, to redefine the model and the playing style comes in that summer window.
Lee, see, just because you've mentioned it a couple of times regarding the summer window, see with I know you've done it recently with the introduction of Oscar McIntyre, Josh O'Connor, Ethan Laidlaw, etc., getting in the first team squad, and then some of them getting minutes as well. Is your plans for the summer changing slightly because of the impact that they'd either have in the youth run that they've done in the UEFA Youth League or the reserve games? I heard Steve Keane talking about the fact that the 19s were basically playing against a fringe Livingston first team the other week. Is their impact in training and what you're seeing from them changing what you feel you might need to do in the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way it should be. We want to give these boys opportunity. I think they've had outstanding exposure to the first team this year, whether it be regular in coming up and training with the first team, playing against the first team in the in-house games that we have. We had one on Friday, which was a really good example. And they get to really have purposeful practice in that sense. They get to experience the pace, the speed of thought. And what you really want to do is bring these talented young players into a good sort of vibrant team with a strong emotional stability and a strong identity. And although we've got the identity, like what we're looking to do, and I've harped on about this in the press conference recently, increase the quality, like reduce the quantity, and then open up that pathway for the young players to come through. And the reason I've been so happy with the last sort of 3 results, if you like, all right, Ross County, I thought we should have won that one, given a VAR decision, was because that was really the first sign of that plan sort of really coming to the fore and actually being successful, really, in a time where we needed to show resilience as well. Now, moving the 12, sort of 13, maybe even 14 players, as it might be, out in this window, has led, I think, to a really good working environment. That emotional stability is there. We don't have the splinter cell of disappointed players that end up congregating and create a little bit of a malaise around the training ground. And I think that's really important for the environment. You know, if you look at the top clubs, the top teams, the successful teams, they've got a core of very good players, you know, stretching their budget to the maximum. They've got a real identity, and they've got the opportunity for young players that are really, really grateful to being around it to go and infiltrate the first team and the starting 11. And then once they do that, you know, you've got a proper player, if you like, and then inevitably there'll be interest on the back of that in those players, and with the likes of Doig as an example, ends up moving in a big summer move.
Nice one, lads. It's Liam here. Thanks again for spending your time with us this evening. I just wanted to hear from the both of you. I wanted to ask if you could go back to any point in your Hibs careers, the both of you, is there anything that you would change? What would you change to get a different outcome for something that happened that you didn't like, or that you thought could have been better?
I'll go first.
Cool. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think hindsight's a great thing. I think I could have probably pushed for a director of football to have come in a little bit earlier than we had. If you remember, I came in late July, in the August, so I don't think that was a window that I could have done anything about. But then the January window with Rocky, David Marshall, Ewan Henderson, even though Marsh was a pre-contract, you know, I felt it was okay for January, and then it was only after the summer window when we actually felt that we probably needed some more focus on perhaps football nous, recruitment nous, and I think if we would have done that sooner, perhaps after that January window, that would have probably benefited us with a few of the decisions that we would have made. I think that's probably about it. I also think there are some moments in time that you look at, whether it be VAR decisions this year. We were massively unlucky against Dundee United. The week before VAR was introduced, we were just robbed of a perfectly legitimate goal, you know, which would have extended the run that we were on under Lee. I thought that was a massive, massive moment for us, really, to lose that game 1-0 in such an unjust situation. And then the other thing is that I have to look at injuries, and unfortunately, this club has not been fortunate with injuries to key players, and I mean huge players for the football club. Whether it be Nesbitt with Sean, whether it be Martin Boyle with Lee. You need your best players on the pitch, and they are moments that I couldn't affect or change. But if you could do something differently, you wouldn't play them at that point in time. So Starfelt wouldn't go through the back of Nizzy or whatever it might be, and you know, Martin wouldn't get the innocuous kind of clash that you got. And I can't remember who it was against, but them sort of moments are moments in time that you kind of look at and go, they were quite majorly important things. But director of football, sporting director would have probably been one of the things that I would have done a little bit earlier. But we are where we are now, and we'll get the right person in place.
How is the search going for the director of football, Ben?
It's going fine. It's ultimately we didn't put it on pause. We went out knowing that we had it sanctioned from the board, that we were bringing in a director of football, and then what we wanted to do was really focus all of our efforts on making sure that we got the players out that we needed to get out. Perhaps made any kind of savings that we could make in order to give us the best possible opportunity of resetting come the summer, working hand in hand with Lee the whole time. That January transfer window, we had lots of bids for lots of players that we didn't accept. So therefore, I think sometimes there needs to be some highlighted on the fact that we didn't cash in on certain players. And it was always a case of we would allow for any applicants that were showing an interest to come to us. We've got a long list at the moment. Lee and I and the board are aware of that long list. We've got a candidate brief, i.e., for all intents and purposes, a job description, so there's real clarity. And that kind of movement from a long list to a short list is happening in the month of February. So we will have someone in post by easily the end of the season.
Ben, are you still accepting CVs? Because my friend Sean here is actually interested in the job himself.
See what? I don't think I've seen his CV somehow. I don't think he's come in.
It's too good to apply, Ben. You know, I thought I would maybe just take this opportunity here and make the most of it. You know, so we can catch up afterwards.
But there you go. There you go. Well, look, we haven't turned away anyone yet, so therefore,
Oh, you're looking to turn me away straight away, or
never.
I just want to know if you intend to keep the manager.
Of course.
Nice. Sign him up.
And Lee, if there's anything that you would do differently, looking back on it in hindsight at your time at Hibs, just to get a different outcome.
Yeah, I think look, it's difficult because genuinely there's so much context to each decision that you make. You know, when I look back at the summer window, like there's a couple of things I'd have done. The first thing I'd have done is I walked through the door, I would have instilled a code of conduct, believe it or not, because I feel like the discipline at the club needed to be improved. And I probably expected a club this size to have that, maybe. But it led to, in my opinion, a lot of ill disciplines, if you like, around the football club. And I believe what you choose to ignore, you encourage. So what I've tried to do is professionalize it more so that when I'm speaking to somebody, there's a process in place because they've maybe had a misdemeanor or something like that. But there's a panel that takes over in a proper disciplinary procedure rather than me fining players and therefore upsetting people along the way. But what I would say is the last sort of 6 weeks have been, we've got that all in place. You know, everything structurally behind the scenes is in really good shape. And we had to go through the bad spell, actually, to bring that to the forefront and to actually be aggressive to be able to implement that. And then I just look at the summer window and you know, we had 7 players injured. Again, like we took some risks, if you like, that probably didn't work as we'd have hoped. I think we'd question whether we're set up enough to, or was we at that point, I should say, to be able to integrate foreign players. And like a good example of a player needing time, I think, is Ellie Ewan. I think his performances over the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks have been outstanding. And listen, it's difficult, you know, you're adjusting to a different culture, a different style of football, a different tempo, different environments. And I think maybe 1 or 2 too many, if you like, that we couldn't quite integrate like we maybe thought we could. So a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges, but I actually do believe this squad fully fit for the budget is pretty good, if I'm honest with you. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get it all together. Individual games, of course, there's the odd sort of shape decision that you, in hindsight, you could have changed, or maybe substitution or 2 that you would have done earlier and things like that. But again, it's all contextual to the moment and to the information that you've got, which often the fans don't have, if you know what I mean. And you know, these are human beings that we're dealing with, and they have issues at home and not sleeping and new babies born and all those crazy things that go down. And obviously I've got all that context when we make those decisions. So yeah, I feel like, you know, the challenge is vast here, but it's also like really exciting. You know, I love getting up. I love going into the training ground every day. I really enjoy working with my staff, who are great people and great practitioners as well. But we've had a lot of hurdles to overcome. And like I say, I understand that smell of success, if you know what I mean. And I can feel that coming. I can feel it around the training ground. And every opportunity we get to redefine that and improve it, I think we'll take now moving forward.
Scottish Cup next year then? Scottish Cup winners?
Well, all of it. Listen, we want to be progressive, you know, like we don't, like, of course, I was devastated to be knocked out of the cup, particularly against local rivals. But whatever we say, well, we've got to catch them. Do you know what I mean? And we've got to catch them quickly, and we can. I still maintain that, you know, the top 15 players in each squad here, there's not a lot of difference between us and Hearts. And hopefully we get to prove that, obviously, over the next 8 games plus in the league.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Absolutely. And Lee, you touched on the sort of poor run of form that we went on, and probably the low point of that was those defeats to Hearts, obviously the back-to-back 3-0 games. I'm interested to hear from you both just how you dealt with that pressure on an individual level. You know, a club like Hibs, defeats like that to your biggest rivals don't go down well with anyone. How did you deal with that on a personal level? Because I'm not massive on social media, but when I did go onto social media, there was a lot of personal name dropping, about you both about the club. So how did you deal with that pressure on an individual level, and how did you keep the lads motivated in the dressing room as well?
I'll let Lee obviously talks about the lads and the players and stuff. I'll talk about the staff actually first of all. My job first and foremost is not to worry about myself or Lee, because we will have the tightest relationship out of anyone else. So we talk to each other a lot, and I mean at any hour of the day. So we always talk after a match, because I think it's the right time to do it. Some people don't, because there's a lot of emotion involved. I always do it because that emotion is allowed to come out, and I think you can be honest at that point. Other people look at it differently, but we seem to have that understanding that we're happy to do that with each other. For me, it was about ensuring that we remain positive in the absolute face of criticism, that we show resilience, togetherness, trust, and we maintain that kind of hard work to turn the corner. That's really hard when you've got a staff base of, we'll say, kind of, around 120, 130 staff wise, and they need to believe that you're going to turn the corner. And then equally at the same time, devastated that the fans have to go through the type of roller coaster that they're having to go through, but resilient and knowledgeable in the fact that, do you know what? If we're having the right type of conversations, if we're challenging ourselves in the right way, we've got to believe in trusting the process. And there's going to be moments of doubt. But the one thing I don't believe in is kind of ignoring that noise, because I think you have to listen to it and you have to let it slap you right in the face. And it's not nice. It's embarrassing. It's very, we have to go through that roller coaster of emotions ourselves. It's not easy, but you've just got to look at it right in the eye and learn from it and build up that level of resilience to then be constructive enough to start the next day in a positive way. And I would say communication is probably the key thing with that. I've tried to become as open as I can with the fan base, and you'll know that better than anyone, because we have had a lot of conversations. I'll never shy away from fans or anything like that. If they want to talk to me, despite what people may say around the club not coming out and talking enough, I'll never shy away from that. And if anyone wants to write in or speak to me, then the door's open. I'll respond to them. I've had supporters email me, phone me, call me, whatever they want. Ultimately, I phone them back, and I've had conversations with them, and I've explained some context around it. I've not tried to justify the sort of the result, and I've never sort of acted without integrity when it comes to Lee and being honest with Jack, Lee, or Sean. So as long as you can kind of look at yourself like that, I think you'll do all right in this industry. It's the ones that can't look at themselves in that way that I think come a cropper in the end. But in terms of motivating players and motivate yourself first of all.
Yeah, well, look, I said no one is affected more than me after a game. And I think you'd have seen from my original heart sort of rant, if you like, that things needed to improve. And inevitably that was directed at the players in terms of believing in the players, because I do, but believing that we're only performing to, I think the word I use was mediocre levels. And that really was a bit of a kick up the backside to say, look, you're actually good players here, but when it comes, you're training well, you're fit, you know what I mean? You understand your job role, but I need more pitch personality. And to be honest, I'm actually really pleased with the way the guys have responded to that. I remember hearing about Alex Ferguson after the 6-1 defeat from Manchester City against Manchester United, it being his best week in management. And I've always had that in my head on a human level, that, you know, you've got to be humble enough at that point to accept responsibility for a big defeat to a local derby. And you've also got to start the process of healing. And, you know, as a manager, you're at the forefront of that. And that is not just players, by the way, that is staff, because they obviously become absolutely connected to any result and any performance, as they should be, and they're disappointed. So whether that's the chef, whether that's the physio, whether that's the doctor, whether that's your star striker or your young lad that's coming off the bench, the human qualities there have to come through, and you have to try and lift people as much as possible. And it is difficult at times because, you know, we all feel it and it hurts, but that's where you've got to take the breath, if you like, put your face on, you know, be strong enough to take any criticism that comes your way. And that's why a lot of coaches, really good football coaches, can't be managers, because they can't cope with that. And the first, second, third sign of difficulties and that, because it rains down on you very heavy and very fast from all angles. So I suppose I'm grateful that I've got a lot of experience in management, you know, winning games, losing games, winning the big derbies, losing the derbies, to be able to rebalance the boys like we did going into the Aberdeen game, to then go and put in a brilliant performance, probably when nobody expected it.
Lee, see, just off the back of, because we're talking about the two derby results, I was at your press conference when you got announced. I didn't ask any questions at that point, kind of looking at it as one of those ones you look back, you wish you had. But do you, because like you said, I know you've touched on it, Ben, about fans saying like maybe the club doesn't speak out enough or things like that. Lee, do you find there's an added pressure because you used to play for Hearts? I know you were only there for a short spell,
Yeah,
but there was obviously talk when you got the job that fans couldn't believe that they'd went to an ex-Hearts player, etc., etc. Do you feel like inside you need to, I don't know if you need to prove yourself even more to the support because you were a Hearts player before, but does it give you a bit of added pressure to even more to try and get this right?
Honestly, no, it doesn't, because I'm totally committed. I really enjoy the football club. Like I was so happy and proud, if you like, to be unveiled as manager. I didn't have a particularly good time at Hearts, you know, in terms of I like the people, in terms of the players and the management team, but we all know the carnage that Mr. Romanov brought with that football club. So I didn't feel necessarily attached to the club. Like had it been Bristol Rovers, as an example, and Bristol City, it would have been a completely different feeling, a different type of mentality. But I just believe this is a really good football club, and you know, like I'm just doing a really honest job here. Like I turn up every day, love my work, I love the way we work. You know, I'm proud to be a custodian, if you like, of the football club, and if not a little frustrated that I wanted to do it a bit quicker than it showed so far. I've also got total belief in myself, my staff, and the playing squad, and the opportunities, i.e. the windows, to be able to redefine what we're doing and bring that success to Hibs. And like, you know, nobody, I said, takes a defeat or a loss or a run of losses worse than me. But the brilliance, if you like, of those situations is the truth telling comes very quickly, and that can drive the club forward a lot quicker than maybe a win, a loss, a draw. And I think that's led to what could be a very good run, and has been a decent run over the last sort of 5, 6, 7 games.
Well, don't worry, Lee, because us at the Ramble, we'll forgive you for playing for Hearts, so it's all right.
Thank you. Appreciate that,
did you have one of those boxing matches with Romanov like Roman Bednar did?
No, but there have only been one winner there.
Absolutely. We touched on it earlier on about the transfer window going forward, and I know you said that your plans had kind of changed given the amount of young players that are coming through at the moment. But obviously in the summer there was some deals that we didn't get particularly right. There was players brought in last January. I know that wasn't under your tenure, that are now away again. I was just wondering what the plan was, like a brief plan for the playing personnel going forward, given that we've seen the deals recently, some of them haven't really worked out the way that we wanted them to.
Yeah, listen, it's make the right decisions. You know, I think the first thing is you did have 3 managers plus an interim period, if you like, of players recruited. Simple as that. And every style is different. You know, I want round pegs in round holes for a Lee Johnson Hibs team. And that's not me being egotastic. That's just that I'm the one selecting the starting 11 and the substitutes that get on. So we want a Hibs identity, which is absolutely important. But obviously within that, the intricacies of the style of play, I want certain players to fit certain roles. And like I say, I do believe we've got that. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to put it out there enough. So every opportunity is an opportunity to redefine, narrow the thinking, and improve those elements. So we're always developing players, no matter whether they're like wanted, not wanted. You know, that's a duty of care to be able to do that. Often players surprise you. You know, they grow up, they have a change in circumstances, their body fat gets reduced, they become over a particular injury. You know, something clicks in their mind, they get exposed, they have one good game and the confidence comes. You know, there's so many factors evolving in any sort of football team, football club, and you've got to stick with it. So like moving forward, it's really just to stick to the plan. Like make sure we have to like supersede the budget. That's the first thing. You know, look at Livingston for an example. I would suspect a lower budget outperforming, if you like, that budget to the terms of more. So what we've got to do is make sure we maximize our playing budget and get like super value out of that and have our money on the pitch. You know, you need that because your top players fit, your top players playing. We need to recruit top players for the level. We are going to have to take a couple of punts in there. There's no doubt in that, educated punts. But the systems and the processes that we've now got in place should lead to those decisions being a lot more sort of considered rather than not random, because none of them have been random, but like risky, if you know what I mean. And we don't need the risks anymore because we've got the development of the young players coming through, and everybody obviously wants to see that as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Ben, I would imagine that bringing in the director of football is going to help that in the summer window.
Yeah, definitely. It'll add more football nous to what we need, but it's a support. It's not to start dictating who we're going to sign or anything like that. That's not what these positions do. They are another person that's part of a collective committee to make the club better. But ultimately, the final say will always go down to the manager around whether we sign the player that we eventually get to. I think what the director of football will do is provide better processes in place to ensure we hopefully make fewer mistakes or get more things right across the whole of the piece.
Nice one. If I can just put my 2 pence in, I'm just going to say get Josh Campbell on a contract till 2040. Right, Craig, I'll fire it back over to you, and you can wrap us up.
I'll just throw my 2 pence in as well. Whatever the fee is for Ellie Ewan, pay it. Set up a GoFundMe, we'll all chip in. Just do it. Whatever the fee is.
Good shout.
So in terms, like I said before we started, just for personality wise, so when we do the ramble, we always get asked. So we always put out listener questions, and the first question that comes in is always the same. So if you've not already had it, what are you both having for your dinner?
Wow, I mean, am I going to get any dinner? I would say probably whatever's left over, unfortunately, in my house. So I'll probably end up with some cereal, knowing me.
What kind of cereal? That's the most important question then.
It's definitely Shreddies. Come on.
Oh, come on, that's a poor choice.
It's the only thing I've got in the house.
No.
What about you, Lee? What's on the menu for you tonight?
Do you know what? I'm an absolute disgrace. I have not cooked once in my apartment. I've got not once since the time I've been here. I've always had like either a meal out or sometimes just grapes. You know, if I'm trying to skip a meal, I'll have grapes. And I'm often trying to skip a meal. But we have brilliant food at the training ground. And that's the problem, because we have like a hearty breakfast. a really nice lunch. We've got some really good chefs down there, and they deserve a lot of credit. So I'm the same as Ben, really. At night, I'll be like, if I'm trying to be good and healthy, I'll go extremely light, salad or something like that. But even that will be a Marks and Spencer's little takeaway salad, or some grapes, or if I'm feeling bad, then yeah, I'll just go for it. I'll just get a Chinese or something.
I wouldn't be too embarrassed at that, Lee. Honestly, you should see some of the stuff that Mark has. Some of his selections at night are just as bad as that. So
Listen, they always slag me for having a vegan sausage roll from Aldi, but don't knock it until you eat it. I'm telling you, it's
Fair enough.
superb.
Well, Ben, what team did you support growing up?
Gillingham. Yeah, Gillingham Football Club down in Kent. So it's they're not very good. Well, I think they're good, but they're bottom of the league at the moment. So or second from bottom in League Two. So it was just where I was born. My dad took me to the football and was like, "Yeah, I think this is what you do," type thing. And I was like, "Yeah, great, put me in there." And then I went in the home end with the terraces and things like that, and just started kind of getting to know the songs, ripping it up in there, and it was just good fun. And we built a little community there, and then I started going on my own, and just loved it all the way up to university. Can
we see you in Block 7 anytime soon?
do you know what? Right, I'll tell you what I wouldn't mind doing. I wouldn't mind doing that walk from is it the near Murrayfield?
Yeah,
the Hearts Castle. Yeah,
the Hearts one time. I'd like to do that. That's what I've said that I'd quite happily do. So,
you can come with us. Come with us, Ben. We'll
do it. I'll do it. I said I would. So
in recent years, the walk's been the only highlight. So hopefully, we get more than that as a highlight going forward.
Sean, with you as director of football, we'll be all right.
Of course. I'm at the wheel. Don't you worry.
Look, I'll come with you boys to the on that walk to the stadium. I'd love to do that. So
a couple of cans in.
Exactly. Let's do it.
What about you, Lee? Did you have a team that you followed, or were you influenced by your dad obviously being involved in football?
Yeah, well, I had two teams really, and I lost them both for different reasons. I started off Cambridge United fan, and they were my small team, if you like, because my dad was assistant manager, and then Arsenal was my big team. And
what a choice that is, by the way. What a choice.
My dad got sacked from Cambridge, so I lost that one. And then I got released from Arsenal, so I became bitter on that one and stopped supporting them. So, it's a really tricky place to be. But it's definitely something that I've missed. You know, I've been travelled around with my dad, and Dad was Latvian manager, and he was manager of Kettering and stuff like that. And then myself playing for Arsenal, Watford, and moving around. I haven't had that probably experience that you guys have got where, okay, this is my club, and everything matters within that club. So that's something I've missed. So
I'll get the trains booked. We can go down to the Emirates for the title party at the end of the season. Me and you.
All right, mate. No worries. I have to polish my statue though.
What about your favourite holiday destinations? Where's your end of season trip? Where do you go?
Oh, what have we just been successful? If we've been successful, I'm going with the boys to Vegas.
So no doubt in that. I'm there as well.
So there's a boys trip, and then there's a family trip, if you know what I mean. So the boys trip 100% has to be Vegas. And then I would say
the same.
Dubai,
yeah. We're gonna get the same.
Yeah. Dubai at the end of a long season where you're absolutely knackered and you just need a bit of sun on your back, good food, good heat, bit of sort of culture and sort of everything you need, especially when you got kids or a kid like I've got. There's a lot of fun to be had at the water parks and stuff like that. So, and also you probably sign more players around the pool because it's like the PFA did.
So we happened to be on holiday at a similar time in Dubai, different places, right? And so much time with Lee on the phone that I might as well have literally gone round the islands, sat with him for sort of a decent couple of nights and got it all done. So yeah, but it is what it is. Yeah.
What about your drink of choice? Alcoholic, like primarily. And Lee, can you also confirm if you can get it at Elios?
Oh God! Well, first of all, that was a stitch up of all stitch ups.
Is this the one?
I've got him zooming me right at 9:30 at night. What are you doing? I'm like, I think it must be a pocket Zoom, not a FaceTime, I mean. And I flick it on, I'm in my bed, 9:30 at night. I'm getting emails that you're out on the lash down George Street the night before the Hearts game. I was like, yeah, well, to be fair, I was having dinner with my nan. But yeah, listen, that for me, that was naughty. That was what went on there, because I felt it was a bit of a defamation of character. The fact that it got into the national media. I understand sort of, I don't know, social media and stuff like that. But I'm probably too nice in the fact that, you know, I've had pictures and stuff like that with fans and then got stitched up by a couple of Hearts fans. And fair play to them, to be fair. We said they've created a bit of a storm in a teacup, and it's ended up being negative towards me and us. But if I was to drink after a win in the derby, it would be a smoky old-fashioned. I'm a bit of a whiskey connoisseur. I like my whiskies, and that's the way I would settle after a nice win that I'm very happy with.
And then a couple of whiskies if we get beat.
Yeah, through the shots through the eyeball.
What about you, Ben? What's your tip up?
Mine's a cider because I'm from down south. But but what I would say is that the last thing anyone wants to see the night before a derby is Lee Johnson in his bed, FaceTiming to prove that he's actually in his bed. I'm like, Lee, let's flip off the FaceTime here. Come on, I trust you. It's okay.
Well, it's nice to know that stuff also happens at the higher echelons of football management, and not just us at our wee level with other managers too.
I was in my Hibs onesie as well at the time.
Right, just before we wrap up, what's your guilty pleasure on the playlist? So one thing you can just stick on in the car and you'll sing to your heart's content.
Oh, mine's simple. It's also my karaoke choice of song. It's Lionel Richie. Bit of Lionel Richie, Dancing on the Ceiling or something like that. I think I'm half decent at it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone tell me that I have, or I am half decent at it. But no, that's my thing. Anything that's slightly older, to be quite honest.
I know Lionel's brother, my bullseye. Anyway, I would say, do you know what? I like a bit of country music, so I like a bit of the old Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. Like I could sing that to my heart's content. But my karaoke song, without question of doubt, is Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus.
Oh, truly. What
That's a good choice.
Have you had to do that for initiations? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it.
Is that every single time? Every single time?
Not all. That's more of a karaoke, you know, where you've got to get the crowd going.
Yeah,
a bit.
yeah.
Initiations more like something like like Lulu. You know, you make me want to shout because you can.
Okay, so was that your one choice?
Yeah. Like,
okay, that's good. That's good.
And finally, the last question that we'll ask is, so something that we've done on the podcast since we started is we do the Pioneership review. So every week when we go to away games, we'll rate the pies and we'll give them a score out of 20 based on crust, temperature, flavour and filling. So what we want to know is, what is the best pie you've ever had?
Well, so
it has to be a pie at the football as well.
Yeah, I've had some absolute corkers up here, if I'm honest. The pies up here are seriously good.
Never had the one I had in the famous 5-stand a few weeks ago, I'll tell you that.
In all truth, no, I mean in Scotland in general. But the I tell you what I didn't like. This I'm sure a lot of people will be like, what? But apparently is it Kilmarnock, the pies are meant to be? Yeah, it's meant to be decent, right? I didn't like them. I didn't rate it at all. So I had a decent like steak and ale sort of pie. That's what I like. That's my pie of choice. But up here, actually at football, I'll probably go for a chicken porty if I was going to go for one. But realistically, there's some decent pies I've had up here.
Ross County is phenomenal up in Dingwall. Absolutely phenomenal. If you next time you're in Dingwall, get a Ross County pie.
Yeah, I think I had two actually. I was up
there. Have you sampled the crusty delights of the cinch this season?
Haven't, no. I mean, obviously, I've had a killie pie from when I played there, and I didn't mind it, to be fair. I'd say the worst one was Forest Green, where everything's vegan.
Forest Green
so
pie.
Forest Green pie, there's no meat in it. Like emphasising that vegan sausage roll, but Yeah, so like, you know, I was a powered athlete, so I'd be down the line on sushi and bits and bobs like that.
What's coming out top of your list? Where is it? Is it Ross County?
I think we've got Ross County at the top at the moment, and Kilmarnock is a close second, I think.
Yeah, Liam's only got Celtic Park to do. He's filled out all the rest. So
Yeah, no,
he's
I'm
the go-to man
absolutely,
for the ratings.
I'm absolutely feral for pies, I'll tell you that.
The St Mirren
Hopefully
pie I had
custard
last
pies
weekend
or something
was
like that.
absolutely disgusting. Thankfully, it was saved by Ellie toe bashing it at the bottom corner.
Good.
But listen, we'll wrap up there. Ben, Lee, thanks once again for giving up your time to talk to us. It is really appreciated. And we hopefully look forward to having you on again and wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
No worries.
Thank you.
Cheers.